Welcome to Holistic Health for Happy Kids, the podcast where we dive into the root causes of children's health challenges and explore natural solutions to help little ones thrive. I'm Lisa, a passionate paediatric naturopath and mum of 3, dedicated to empowering parents with practical tips and expert insights to raise healthy, happy kids. Each episode will unpack common childhood health concerns like allergies, eczema, fussy eating, and gut health, and share evidence-based advice to support your child's wellness naturally. Let's create a generation of thriving children, one holistic step at a time. Thank you for joining me on this journey. So welcome to another episode of Holistic Health for Happy Kids. And today we are joined by Sarah Pretorius, one of the naturopaths here at the Paediatric Naturopath. So thank you, Sarah, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Lisa.
You're welcome. So do you want to just kick off and tell me a little bit about yourself, how you became a naturopath, and why you specialize in children?
For sure, yeah. So I've always been drawn to natural medicine. I used to use a bit of herbs when I was growing up. I grew up in South Africa, and it's a bigger part of like just the normal medical system over there. And so I started studying when I was in my 20s, and when I finished, I started working in a herbal dispensary, so at a community apothecary where people were coming in and it's a lot of different ailments, and I was learning a lot from them, and I became really passionate about just being able to meet people where they're at and help them find solutions and get acquainted to natural medicine. I'm very passionate about natural medicine, not just for individual health, but just for the health of families and society as a whole. I think it's a really important part of the medical approach. And so I became quite passionate about teaching people about their bodies and their health and just sort of helping them wherever they were on their journey to access good quality medicine. And so one of the things I did to really enhance my skills was to apply for an internship with Gould's Natural Medicine, which is a really well-established clinic and apothecary and farm that's been going for a really long time. And during that internship, I was able to really learn a lot more about herbal manufacturing and growing the plants and the medicine, and really got to sort of see firsthand how important quality is when prescribing and using medicine, and how effective good quality herbs can be. And so, yeah, I've just had a lot of clinical experience, but also working in apothecaries and working with the herbs themselves.
Which is why I send most of our acute patients to you, because you're really good in that kind of, on the day, my child has croup or my child has tonsillitis, you're amazing at prescribing for that sort of really acute situation. And I think that's the thing, like people seem to think that naturopathy is separate to medicine, but really when you think about the big picture and you think about where we're at with antibiotic resistance and things, you know, if if we keep using antibiotics the way we're using them, within a generation, we'll have lost that from our toolbox. So it's really important now that people step up and start using natural medicine to improve their child's immune system or to reduce their child's ear infection, so we don't lose the gift that is antibiotics for the next generation. So it's, naturopathy is an important way to help with that. And so what do you think is the biggest barriers that prevent like most people from accessing natural medicine?
Yeah, so I think the access is really good in terms of like a lot of more people are using them, and I think a lot of people are at least aware of some of the options. I think probably the barriers for some people are just having an understanding of what we actually do. I think that can be sometimes a little bit of misinformation or a misunderstanding of the fact that yes, we do work alongside, the broader medical system, and that it's not a one or the other approach. So that can sometimes be enlightening for people to realize that they can do both. there is also a lot of overwhelm. So I think there's a lot of different products, a lot of different companies, a lot of different fads, lots of influencers, people telling us all kinds of different information and can be a little bit overwhelming as well. So the information is definitely out there and there's all these different options, but I think people struggle to kind of find the right thing for them and the right sort of sequence of things to follow to heal whatever they're going through.
Because even like as a trained nutritionist and food scientist, like the number of messages that I get about what to eat is so confusing. And, even with my knowledge and my skills, sometimes I get really confused. And what am I meant to be eating? More meat, less meat, more protein, less protein, more legumes, less legumes. Like there's just so much. So for people who, don't work in this field and don't really care to get into the detail, it's extremely overwhelming, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And I think people will often be really relieved to be able to have that conversation and go, okay, yes, that's the right thing for you or not, and start to understand why.
Yeah.
Conversations are a really big part of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
therapy.
And so how can we make naturopathy more affordable and more available to more people?
Well, I think one of the things, definitely the acute consultation is really helpful. Um, that can be a really good way for people who are not just, financially struggling, but also people who are time poor and also people who are just overwhelmed mentally with a lot going on. The short consultation can really kind of be a way to access that. And yeah, not have to, do too much all at once, but just sort of start a step by step process, So if people have an infection and they're already on antibiotics, for example, we can kind of guide them through, the steps to kind of recover from that and recover their gut. And so sometimes people just appreciate that those having to do a few steps rather than,
Mm.
change their whole life, which can also be a bit of a barrier if they're feeling a bit overwhelmed about making too many changes.
Yeah, so like this morning, I made a herbal formula for one of your clients with a chest infection, which when you think what the alternative would be for that child would be going to the doctor and getting antibiotics and getting a steroid puffer, and which will then, disrupt the microbiome and make them more susceptible to a chest infection next time round. So nipping that in the bud. When it's appropriate. I mean, obviously there are times when you do need antibiotics, but majority of the time you don't.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially if you get onto it earlier, a lot of the time people will come to me and they've already had the antibiotics and the cough's still going, and they having gut issues then and there's a secondary infection and so on. So yeah, getting on top of it early can be really
Mm.
important
Yeah.
as well.
And I guess the good thing is that people and like children, but people in general, usually have a weak spot. So for me, it's migraines. For my husband, it's his chest. For my son, it's his chest. So whenever you kind of know for your kids what their weak spot is, you can kind of plan ahead so that you know that the first sign of a chest infection, you put them on their naturopathic herbal formulation and you just snip it in the bud and then it doesn't progress. So just being aware that everybody, I'm pretty sure everybody just has that like weak spot that you can identify. So how can parents start to use natural medicine at home without breaking the bank?
Yeah, so I could give you a very long list. I guess the first thing that comes to mind is learning what sort of weeds are growing in your garden, using potentially being able to use them as, medicine or food. That can be a really nice way to sort of learn about plants and sort of do it from a really grassroots approach. Diversifying your diet's pretty easy and doesn't require too much extra money, but definitely has really profound impacts on overall long-term health. Making your own, balms and creams and medicine and just kind of developing a few skills in that regard can also help save a lot of money. I think having a good chat with a naturopath too to find out, like you said, about your weak spots and things that come up for your family regularly. And so using that initial consultation as a way to prepare your medicine chest at home and just have some strategies in place for when things start to come up so you can get on top of them quickly. That can definitely save a lot of money. And then I would say drinking herbal tea can be really useful for a few different reasons. And things like avoiding processed food, which is not going to cost you any money, but have a lot of benefit.
Yeah, I was in Pilates this morning, and our Pilates studio looks across the road at a McDonald's. So it's like 6:30 in the morning, and the traffic to McDonald's drive-through didn't stop for the whole 45-minute class. And you think, there's a cost of living crisis. People can't afford X, Y, and Z, but that's 200 cars have just pulled up to get their breakfast at McDonald's. So avoiding processed foods, avoiding takeaway, and investing that money back into some lentils in the supermarket can be so important. And I love herbal teas. Like I've always been a herbal tea drinker because it's just such a lovely ritual as well.
Mhm.
Like you just, because you have to brew it for 5 or 10 minutes. It's not like, you just dump the tea bag and you're off. Like you have to boil the kettle and brew the tea and let it sit. And it's just lovely. And it's great for kids as well.
For sure. Yeah, I think it kind of brings all those elements of natural medicine together, the slowing down, sensory awareness, and then you've got all of those phytochemicals and vitamins and minerals that are also going into the tea. So you can sort of slowly be getting that without having to take, a whole bunch of supplements.
You made me a lovely formulation for a nighttime tea, which I made yesterday, which had chamomile, sage, lavender, and lemon balm in it. And
Did
I
you
had
like
it at 8 o'clock last night, and I had it too early.
it? Oh, really?
It made me so sleepy so quick.
Oh,
So
oh,
tonight I
that's
just need to push it out to like 8:45. I mean, I go to bed
good.
late anyway, but I was like, oh, okay, I'm asleep now. What are some of the common misconceptions about naturopathy that you think stop people from trying it?
I guess there's this idea that you have to kind of change your whole life, like all of a sudden, because, people will sometimes come and they'll be like, oh, I know I eat really badly and I'm not exercising, or they sort of see that as like, a big barrier that they have to overcome before they can actually reach a sense of health. But that's not really the case. I mean, naturopathy can meet you wherever you are, and it can, just you can sort of use little aspects of it and just sort of slowly build on, supporting your microbiome, diversifying your diet, things like that. You can make small steps rather than having to change overnight or, drastically change everything, which can be really overwhelming for people.
Because at the end of the day, I don't think anybody changes overnight. Like even, everybody starts somewhere and just chips away at it. I remember when I really started working on my health, which is probably like 25 years ago. And I love my food, but what really worked for me was just eating more vegetables. So
Mm.
not cutting anything out, not doing any like weird or strange fad diets. I just really, really focused on eating five vegetables and two fruits every day, which meant at breakfast time I had to have some veggies. At lunch I had to have some veggies, and at dinner I had to have some veggies. So that doesn't seem like much, but then that pushed out, toast or like something that had a lot less nutrients. Like we all have to start somewhere and then we just chip away at it as we go. And it's the same for kids. Kids don't change overnight, but if you start to make the little changes with them, they start to feel better. Like I had a client last week who came to see me last year and he was having, Cocoa Pops and milk for breakfast. He was having a Vegemite sandwich for lunch. He was having like three different packets in his lunchbox. He was eating, 2-minute noodles after lunch, and he felt like crap. He had no energy. He was like really low mood, like things were not good. And his parents have been remarkable in chipping away. And now he has sourdough toast with like a nut butter at breakfast. It's still not perfect, but it's a hell of a lot better. But he feels better now, so he's motivated to change. So he'll keep it up rather than it just having to be the parents from like who have to do all the hard work. So one thing that you've really impressed upon me is the importance of quality when it comes to things like, dried herbal teas. I had never really thought too much about that. But why is quality so important when it comes to choosing supplements in herbal medicine?
Yeah, so I guess the natural medicine industry, it's a $1 billion industry. And so there's a lot of different supplements and products out there. And a lot of the companies aren't really concerned about quality. And so you can get a really wide range of quality products that are used as a starting material to make your supplements or your herbal, powders and things. And I guess natural products, they have natural variations depending on where they're grown, the season, um, whether or not it rained a lot that year. Like that'll also change the chemistry of the plant. But then also like when it's harvested, if it's harvested too early, just to speed up production, or if it's dried on the side of the road rather than in like a special drying area. And then how long it's stored for is another really big one because obviously we're getting plants from all around the world, and that so the variations, like just there's gonna be so many variables in the plants that you're getting. And so yeah, so having some idea of what quality looks like, and that can have such a massive impact on the supplement and how therapeutic it is. And I've certainly seen that and experienced that.
And of course, the supplements that we use would all, go through rigorous quality assurance because they're, the supplements as in the capsules and the tablets, they're from big companies, they're quality assured. But then if you're just going and sort of buying some stuff off the internet, you don't really know the history of the company and the trustworthiness of that company. So
That's
that's why
exactly
it's
right. Yeah.
really important to buy from, well-known sources.
Yeah.
And obviously then, what's the risk when you do use the poor quality supplements?
So, not getting the benefits would be the number one thing is often people will say to me, oh, I've tried everything, nothing's worked. And often, sometimes trying everything can mean trying some, lower quality supplements and things like that. But sometimes that can cause harm if you're not treating something that needs to be treated to prevent harm. I guess wasting your money is another big thing. I often will come across people that have got cupboards full of supplements, but they're not necessarily good quality supplements. And so, they're wasting their money, unfortunately. I guess not having faith in natural medicine, that can sometimes happen because, people have been using things that haven't been very good quality, and they sort of lose the interest in being able to use that as a form of medicine, and can often really miss out on a lot of really good benefits from that.
Yeah. And so what's the easiest way for a parent to know if they are actually buying a good quality product?
Definitely having a consult with a naturopath or just chatting to one over the counter, someone who's qualified and is using practitioner only products, or products from companies that really have an ethical basis for why they're doing what they're doing. And yeah, so a naturopath or a herbalist will have a very strong focus on that as part of their treatment. So having a chat to someone to ask about the best quality products would be a good place to start. Yeah, so a herbalist or a naturopath will also have a really good idea of what to look for, so they can sort of show you that as well.
Yeah. I guess something that kind of everyone can relate to or appreciate is with like an actual dried herb for a tea. If that's, harvested when it's raining and it's not dried properly, then mold would be a massive issue with that.
Mm.
So
Yep.
that's, we can all relate to, leaving clothes on the line too long and them getting.
Totally, yeah. And also just the example of a tea bag is a good place for just people to assess quality just by themselves. If you compare a cup of just a chamomile tea bag, from Woolies, to a cup of organic loose leaf chamomile tea, make two different cups, you'll see the smell, the taste, the therapeutics, the way it makes you feel will be quite different.
Even with black tea, I mean, it took me years to be able to accept a tea bag because I grew up with a very fanatical father who's like always bought loose leaf tea, always brewed it for 3 minutes. And you just get used to it. It's a very different experience and it's a very different flavor. What would be some red flags that you would say that people could look out for when they're buying probiotics or herbal supplements?
Yeah, okay, that's a good question. So with probiotics, definitely a red flag for me would be if there are probiotics listed without like the species name. So just yeah, probiotics that don't necessarily have any research to back up their effect. And then any probiotics that don't tell you how much of that particular probiotic is in there because, yeah, research shows that we do need to know the strain and also you need a certain amount of those colony forming units, so the CFUs, to actually have a beneficial effect. Definitely herbal products that have like lots and lots of different ingredients in a capsule. So you'll be getting tiny amounts of everything. I tend to avoid those because I just feel, unless you're having, unless you know that it has a really synergistic effect, often it's just to make a product look good and there's just tiny amounts of everything. It's not really going to help with anything. Yeah, just very cheap sort of bargain basement type products that are um, you know, um, often those sorts of products will have quite cheap excipients and probably not the best quality in terms of having a therapeutic effect. Um, yeah, any kind of herbal leaves and flowers that are pale, have lost their color and have lost their smell are probably not going to have much benefit either. And yeah, I mean, I could go on. But yes, there are definitely fads, things that are going around as like the flavor of the month. Those can be pretty damaging for some people. Definitely, some people will, especially on social media, there'll be a lot of influencers talking about, a certain product or whatnot, but you really kind of need to know how that product's going to affect your body and whether that's relevant to you or not, and how long to take it for and all of that sort of thing. So fads, I tend to steer clear of them, and I tend to see, a fair bit of damage that can come about from people using them
And
without,
I would
checking.
add something else to the list actually, and I would say anything that's multi-layer marketing.
Oh, yeah, and
Because
subscription models.
yeah, so you see quite often people in Facebook groups are like, oh my God, you have to try this. It's amazing. And if you drill back into the person's profile, you see that they're like in the pyramid for selling that product. So, you always just have to, if someone's getting paid to recommend it, obviously just be very, very wary of what their motivations are.
Yeah.
Um, and so, in an ideal world, we would all have kind of our medicine chest at home with our natural remedies in it. What would be the things that you would get everybody to just put in that medicine chest?
I think for most people, I think it's a really good idea to have a couple of really good quality herbal tinctures. So definitely like an echinacea type blend, something that you can use for general immune function when people start getting sick in the house, or if you're traveling to prevent respiratory infections. Definitely like a chamomile and ginger mix. So chamomile and ginger can, be very, very good for any kind of stomach pain or, gastro-related kind of inflammation. So it can just be good to have on hand if, someone's got a really bad tummy ache because it'll soothe it quite quickly. Obviously, you still have to get to the bottom of it, but having those on hand can be really helpful. I would say also like a good quality calendula ointment for, any kind of cuts and scrapes and, minor skin issues. That's very healing and antibacterial. Also, how long do you want me to go for?
Give us a few more.
I've got obviously, I'm one of those people that likes to be very prepared, so I've always got everything. But I definitely like some LGG probiotic that's got a really broad range of actions for gut infections, diarrhea, gastro, and just generally boosting immune function. And if you have to have antibiotics, that is also a good probiotic to have on hand. I think especially for parents of small children, having some like herbal ear oil is really, really good to have because a lot of ear infections will just naturally recover from without needing any further interventions. And a lot of the time, parents will go towards getting antibiotics just because of the pain.
Yeah.
But the herbal oil can actually really relieve the pain. It's extremely soothing, but it also has that like topical antimicrobial effect. And so that's a really good way to sometimes avoid not one, but sometimes even more like multiple courses of antibiotics if you have that and you're sort of familiar with using it and you're able to kind of, discern when it's appropriate. But
And
that,
there's really good research, like they've done really great research on those herbal oil things
yeah.
to show that they work. Like you don't need to go to the antibiotics. And at the end of the day, it's probably going to be cheaper as well because you can use
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
same bottle over and over and over again for that year where, you know, we see a lot of kids who have 12 courses of antibiotics when they're like 2 or 3. So buying one
Exactly.
little bottle of oil will shortcut a lot of that.
Yeah, I mean, they're $20 for like a really good quality extract. And it feels so nice too when you're in pain to have that soothing warm oil going in.
Yeah, and even if you don't have the herbal oil, even just the warm oil, like olive oil, is actually
Mm.
really good too. So, what's sort of the unique role that a naturopath can play in a child's health journey?
Yeah, so I guess in early life, that's when the microbiome's developing, the nervous system's developing, everything is still kind of in developmental mode. And so you have that opportunity, if you're seeing a naturopath, to really help support those foundational areas while the child's growing. Obviously, they're going through a lot of growth spurts too. So a naturopath can really help make sure that their diet is appropriate for their age, they're getting all the nutrients they need so that, they can just thrive in all areas. I think, yeah, it's just nice to have that sort of early consultation with a child, so that, any kind of future things that come up for them, there is that continuity of care as well. So you've had like a really in-depth look at their overall health, like their birth, anything that has come up for them in that early life, and you're able to kind of give them some good suggestions, knowing their earlier life and their predispositions and things that they're more likely to need help with.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
as I mentioned earlier, like one of your like specialist subjects is doing the acute naturopathy for acute consults. So give me some examples. What are the sort of the common acute things that you help children with?
Definitely like any kind of colds and flus would be a number one. Skin issues, so you know, things like impetigo, molluscum, any kind of like inflammatory sort of antifungal skin issues. We will often see a lot of those things, but definitely also like sleep issues. It can really range. Like you can see them for so many things, but I would say definitely a lot of anxiety, sleep issues, some behavioral stuff when kids are just needing that extra support for whatever's going on for them. But we mostly see early onset infections or kids that are just struggling with behavioral issues or sleep.
Yeah. And so give me some examples of, you know, a child who, you know, you saw for an acute illness who recovered like quickly because they were using natural medicine.
Yeah, I mean, I that sort of happens every day. We've got,
Yeah.
I guess I saw someone recently who had been, actually, I've seen a few kids recently who've had like ongoing gastro issues, like probably like a post-viral IBS or potentially Giardia. So different situations, but they've been through the antibiotics. They've, it's in some cases ended up in hospital ultrasounds. Just no answers at all to any of it. Just kind of go home and deal with it. But the pain sort of affecting them going to school, not being able to, play sport, and yeah, just having to go home from school and all that sort of thing. So in all of those instances, bringing in pomegranate, LGG, and a couple of other things has been almost immediately effective in like reducing like or alleviating their symptoms. And so they'd been sort of struggling with those for a couple of months. And I've had a bit of a spate of that recently. My kids have just been having, months of stomach ache and no clue as to what's going on there. Like nothing's coming up in the stool test or the ultrasounds or the hospital visits or anything, but just a short course of herbs and probiotics has been enough to get them back on track.
Yeah, that's so good, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so, in the spirit of, you know, giving people some tools to walk away with today, where they can start to implement natural medicine at home, give me a few quick and easy home remedies that parents can try.
Yeah, so for like a runny nose, a really nice remedy that you can make at home is to infuse some sage and hyssop in some vinegar. And like that's not maybe necessarily that easy for some people, but yeah, just having that sort of, you can make your own herbal infusions using vinegar, and vinegar in particular is quite good for when you have that runny nose, that really runny, sort of copious mucus, it just won't stop running. Vinegar extracts can be really good for that. And so we use sort of drying antimicrobial herbs in the vinegar. And you should have a nice little, you can sort of make a little nice drink for the child. You can mix honey in, and if you want to, you can sort of do some elixir making. But that can kind of give them those herbal benefits with a little bit of that vinegar as well.
Funny, my son loves vinegar. Like we pretty much have a salad every day with dinner, and it's just the most basic of salad. But and I put balsamic vinegar in it, and he would nearly drink the balsamic vinegar
Yeah,
from
right.
the
Yeah,
bottle.
I
He's also
found
my runny
a lot of
nose
kids
kid, so
like the
I'll have to try that.
sour taste. Yeah, it's quite contracting, so it helps when there's like a lot of excess fluid going on.
Yeah. And sage, I'm a terrible gardener, absolutely shocking, but I can grow herbs for some reason. So I have sage growing. What about hyssop? Can you grow hyssop?
Yeah, hyssop is a perennial plant, so it's one that, it'll just keep coming back. And yeah, you can definitely grow it. I live in Tasmania and I have got some in my garden. But yeah, I've found it pretty easy. I guess another similar herb would be thyme as
Mm,
well, or even peppermint would be another good option. Just
yeah.
depends on, what your little herb garden's doing.
Yeah,
Um,
well, both of those are easy to grow because I can grow both of them. So try
yeah.
those.
Yeah. I'd also say probably just like a lemon balm, lavender and chamomile iced tea is a really good option for kids for a lot of different reasons. But yeah, using those three herbs in particular can be really helpful for upset stomachs, hyperactivity, kids that are just feeling a little bit off.
Yeah.
And it really helps them sleep, especially as an iced tea, because the cold tea can really help sort of get them into that sort of sleep state. So that's
Really?
another thing to try. Yeah, yeah, just because you kind of need to drop your temperature a little bit to
Yeah.
fall asleep. And some kids have a bit of trouble with that, especially if they run hot. So often we'll try an iced tea as part of the herbal approach to help them settle at night.
And do you have any concerns with lavender in children from a like a endocrine disrupting point of view or anything like that?
No, I haven't. Obviously, they're not going to be getting huge amounts of lavender. I don't have it on my radar as an endocrine disruptor. I guess there's always the potential for high doses of things to be problematic. I think the beauty of teas is that you're sort of getting small amounts
Yeah.
regularly. But I see lavender as being an extremely anti-inflammatory, pain relieving, calming,
Yeah.
nervous system tonic. But
I
yeah,
know.
I think it's always really important to have a check-in with a naturopath or a herbalist if you are prescribed using herbs long term or doing something every day, because there can sometimes be little nuances that you need to be aware of that
I
might
think a
apply.
really good example of that is peppermint can make reflux worse, can't it?
Exactly,
And,
yeah.
peppermint's probably one of the most popular herbal teas that are out there. And if you got a tummy issue, you got reflux, you think I'll have peppermint tea, but yeah, it can actually make things worse, which you definitely wouldn't know.
Yeah, can do, yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, that's been so interesting, even for me, who works in this field every day. So, Sarah, you can book in with Sarah for just a normal initial consultation with a naturopath for, most issues. But if it's literally just my kid has croup or my kid has impetigo, something that I suppose you would see a GP for, like, on the day, you can book in those sorts of acute consults with Sarah. So they're 15 minutes. They're much cheaper than an initial consult. And yeah, you can get a herbal blend or probiotics or teas, whatever Sarah thinks is going to be most appropriate.
And even just like a supplement review can sometimes be really appropriate as well, just to sort of check in with what you're taking or giving your child. I find a lot of parents book in for that, and it's always quite enlightening for them.
Yeah. And the benefit of doing this from home is that you don't have to bring that 2 shopping bags worth of supplements with you. You can
I
just
just take the laptop to the kitchen and
yeah, and turn it
show me
around
what
and
you got.
think. So thank you, Sarah. It's been lovely talking to you, and I'm sure we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Lisa. That was lovely. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Holistic Health for Happy Kids. I hope you found today's episode helpful and inspiring on your journey to raise thriving, healthy little ones. Remember, small, consistent changes can lead to big transformations. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other parents who might benefit. You can also follow me on Instagram and Facebook at the Paediatric Naturopath for more tips, tools, and inspiration. If you've got a question or a topic you'd love to hear about, please send me a message. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, take care and keep supporting your kids in the most natural, nurturing ways possible.